Welcome to the Audit and Internal Controls Committee meeting of the Nassau Interim Finance Authority. It is 5:06 p.m. on August 29th, 2022. The Audit and Internal Controls Committee, two of our four members are present. All other board members who are present for the meeting are also present for this committee meeting and are welcome to ask questions either in this context or when we bring any items forward to the full board. We have a 3-item agenda. The first is to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was at the end of May. The second is to approve NYFA's 2023 budget, not the county's, but NYFA's own line item budget so that it can be included in the county's budget and multi-year plan. And then the third is to approve a list of pre-qualified firms as we create a panel of potential service providers to assist us in meeting the new legislative mandate to provide audit oversight to the IDA, OTB, and the Nassau University Medical Center, or AKA New Health. And so with that, Adam, you and I will be making and seconding our own motions for this meeting. Right. If you'd like to move the approval of the minutes.
Motion to move for approval.
It's been made. I'll second. All in favor, aye. I vote aye as well. So the minutes are passed. The second item, I think Carl was probably going to present briefly the budget and the multi-year plan for NYFA itself, unless Evan was planning on that.
No, Carl, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Chris. Carl will take care of it.
Thank you and good evening. NYFA prepares a financial plan at about this time each year, as it must be included in Nassau County's multi-year financial plan. NYFA's financial plan must also be filed with New York State's public authorities reporting system at the earliest possible date before the fiscal year commences on January 1st. The proposed financial plan for 2023 that I'm submitting for your approval is substantially consistent with what was assumed in the financial plan adopted last year, with a small increase primarily in the areas of liability insurance and staffing costs. Consistent with this anticipated increase, totals for NYFA's core operating expenses in 2024 and 2025 are $60,000 and $65,000 greater in each year than was approved by you last year, respectively. These increases reflect current staffing levels, the announced future pension contribution rates by the New York State Comptroller, and projected increases in health insurance premiums in accordance with estimates provided by the State Department of Civil Service. Our proposed financial plan for statutorily mandated expenses fluctuates between $50,000 for 2023 and 2025 and $550,000 for 2024 and 2026 to provide for the recently mandated biennial operating audits of 3 Nassau County public benefit corporations. I want to emphasize that NYFA remits to the county all unspent core and statutorily mandated appropriations. All other components of the proposed financial plan remain largely unchanged from our current financial plan. The assumptions that we use to develop our financial plan are in your materials immediately following the document that I'm currently presenting. Can I answer any questions regarding the proposed budget?
Sure. On the budget, obviously the reason for the differences between years is that we have a biennial requirement under the new legislation for the OTB, IDA, and hospital audits, if I understand correctly. So theoretically, the only thing that could change is those are by, not necessarily on type dates. Theoretically, we could get one done in one year and two in the other, right around New Year's Eve, if you will. So I think there's probably some flexibility in there, but I understand why it comes in groups, right? Because we've got the every other year audit requirement that's been required by legislation. That makes sense.
The audit, Chris, if I may, it's chair, it has to be presented to the legislature according to the legislation by the end of the year.
Right, it's a by, not an on or an in. So you could theoretically do it a little sooner too, right? Right. Okay, got it. I understand. I have no other questions. I think it's a well-presented budget. Clearly, we're dealing with $2 million of operating expenses in total. That fluctuates up and down for the audit, which takes it up substantially in the odd or even years, in the every other year. So I'm fine with it. Any questions from any board members or from Adam as another member of the committee?
Nope.
Let's move. I'll entertain a motion to approve the submission, and we'll carry this to the full board.
Yeah, motion to approve the budget.
Made, seconded, all in favor? I vote aye as well.
Aye.
That passes. On the third and final item for our consideration, and there are some discussion items as well, which is the results of NYFA through June, and those were really informational. I don't know if Carl wanted to cover those, but our next item and final item on the agenda is to consider the recommended approval of a panel of potential service providers. I think in one case there is only one firm on the panel for one of the entities. The remainder, we have multiple choices. Evan, are you going to present that as Jerry or Connell?
Tonight, Connell will present this action item.
Perfect. Okay, Connell.
Great.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. This item is the recommendation to approve the list of pre-qualified firms for inclusion on the panel to undertake audits, reviews, or analyses and provide findings and reports. According to that recent New York State legislation, NIFA must conduct biennial audits of the IDA, OTB, and the Nassau University Medical Center and generate findings and reports. And the first of the audits must be completed by December 31st of this year. To avoid duplication on the financial audits that are already done on these entities, NIFA's focus will be on pursuing various performance and/or operational audits, reviews, or analyses. The list of pre-qualified firms will enable NIFA to select the firm or firms best suited to undertake the assorted audits, reviews, or analyses. It is expected that staff will recommend that the directors approve selected firms from the panel for each of the audits, reviews, or analyses. As to the procurement, on August 2nd, the staff posted an RFQ to provide the findings and reports regarding the three entities with responses due on August 23rd. We received responses from 4 firms. The RFQ committee, which was composed of staff, has recommended the list of pre-qualified firms as set forth in your materials for inclusion on the panel. The recommended firms are, for the IDA, Alvarez and Marcel, and Deloitte & Touche LLP. For OTB, Deloitte & Touche LLP, and for NUMC, Alvarez and Marcel, Deloitte & Touche LLP, and Tony Korf Partners LLC. I'm happy to address any questions you may have about the item.
My only question is on the scope of the OTB audit in particular. I assume this covers a period of time, or is expected to, or is it always expected to cover the most recent year or two?
I think it's pretty open. I think that'll be up to the directors to narrow down that scope along with staff. And I think we anticipate doing that very shortly in the next maybe couple of weeks.
Just as a matter of full and fair disclosure, it's been 17 years since I was the chairman of OTB, but I was for 5 years the chairman of OTB as a volunteer.
Okay.
I don't think the scope will extend back that far.
I don't anticipate that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be much more recent. Yep.
If it does, I'll recuse on any matters that might relate to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just as an informational item,
Yeah.
This was basically a very limited response to the RFP. So
Yeah.
we didn't have to whittle this down from a dozen responses. We got a very limited response, even though we actually went out with the RFP or RFQ twice.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, we may be a victim of the vagueness of the legislation as well on the service provider end. They may not know, they may not understand what they're being asked to bid on either. So I guess we'll figure it out together. I would point out that I'm familiar with all the firms that have been listed. They're all firms that have good reputations and are known for high quality service. And as you know, we've worked with 1 or 2 of them. Both Alvarez and Deloitte have worked for NIFA. Deloitte was our auditor before RSM. Alvarez obviously did the report for the hospital for us. So, any questions, Adam, or any other members of the board or committee? Somebody like to move that we approve this list of a panel?
Motion to approve.
Made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That is passed. The informational items are just that. We'll run through them in the meeting. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to the full board meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. This committee meeting is adjourned. The meeting is yours, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. And good evening or late afternoon, whenever it's still sunny out. To the NIFA, Nassau County Interim Finance Authority Directors Meeting of August 29th, 2022. And we will start with the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the Directors Meeting on May 31st, 2022.
Moved.
for the record, Adam, pardon me again for interrupting. I think Mo has just joined us. I saw his name flash on the screen. Kathy, has Mo now joined the meeting?
I have.
Yes,
Okay, there's Mo. Okay, so Mo is now there, so you now have him for voting
You have
purposes.
5 members now.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I'll move the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Chairman,
opposed?
I misspoke, Mr. Chairman. We have 6 present, not 5, sorry.
Okay. Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to approve the submission of NIFA's 2023 budget.
Mr. Chairman, at a meeting that immediately preceded this, the Audit and Internal Controls Committee received a report from Carl Dreyer. And regarding our 2023 NIFA budget and financial plan, we unanimously approved moving that to the full board for approval. So I move it at this time.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion carries. I guess we'll put the next item on the agenda.
It's been added at 5, if I'm looking at the right agenda.
Oh, is it? Okay.
You
I
wanna
don't
take
have
it out of
the
order?
original. Yeah, I would take it out of order because it
Okay.
happened to put it. So
Sure.
nobody is opposed, we'll take it out of order and make it item 3.
Assuming no opposition, Mr. Chairman, at the meeting preceding this meeting, the Audit and Internal Controls Committee approved a list of pre-qualified vendors to support us in our statutory mandated audits of the Nassau Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation, Nassau University Medical Center, and the Nassau County Industrial Development Authority. I will move that resolution for full board approval at this time.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, and then what I would say on this too is that just for informational purposes, so this will pre-qualify a group of firms who can do the work. It's not going to be one firm doing all work. It could be, but doesn't have to be. And then there'll be subsequent meetings and interviews with these firms. And then staff will then have to come back pretty quickly. And we will have to probably have another meeting to then finalize the appointment of which firm on which scope of work, and what the estimated costs would be, et cetera. So we're up against a very tight timeline because the statute requires these to be completed by the end of the year. So the idea was to now pre-qualify this list. Staff will go back, conduct interviews, and then come back with recommendations as to which firm to do which audit and what the relative costs of those audits and the scope of work would be. Is there any questions on that?
And let me just add, we would expect to be coming back to the board within probably approximately 2 weeks for scheduling another board meeting in order to consider, for the board to consider which firms we're ultimately selecting for this first engagement.
I'd also like to make sure that the board has no objection to staff reaching out to these entities and discussing the possible audits that we're going to conduct. And
I think that's implied in putting them on the list, right? That we created a
not
panel.
just the firms, I meant the entities. In other words, it may be appropriate and worthwhile to contact NUMIC, OTB, et cetera, and see if they have suggestions for audits or they have any comments. And also to give them a heads up that we're going to need their cooperation. So unless you object to that, we'd like to have the ability to reach out if we feel it's appropriate without committing to anything.
I would not only not object, I'd recommend you do that.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
I second that.
Okay,
But at the same time, I wouldn't want them to dictate what the scope of the audit is. That'll be left to NIFA.
Of course, yeah.
The ultimate decision will be ours, but they may have very worthwhile suggestions or possible restrictions, et cetera, that we're not aware of.
I made the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The next item is a consideration of the county contract for Gauls LLC. Martha, is that going to be?
Yes, hi, good
Yep.
afternoon. So item 05522 Goals LLC, this is a contract with the police department. The vendor was selected through an RFP process. The contract term is from May 13, 2021 through May 12, 2026. Its value at $5 million. The vendor will provide the police department with custom uniforms and equipment items, sightseeing services, and a secure web-based portal. The police department on July 19 submitted a memo requesting an emergency approval, which was shared with the board, and the chairman at the time approved $1 million for the year 2022. So at this time, although the contract is $5 million, $1 million has been approved, and the board will approve the remaining $4 million. Are there any questions?
If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second.
And second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is a consideration of the county contract for Hazen, Sawyer, and Malcolm Kearney. Martha?
Yes, this is an amendment to an existing contract. The vendor was selected through an open competitive bidding process. The term of the contract is extended through December of 2025, and it adds funding in the amount of $41,087,500. The vendor will provide the necessary services for the successful completion of Superstorm Sandy recovery and Bay Park conveyance project to ensure that the county maximizes its federal aid reimbursement. The contract is going to be funded with capital proceeds, state aid, federal aid, and through loans. Approval of this contract does not guarantee approval of any future borrowings towards the projects. Are there any questions?
Well, Martha, when you said loans, are you referring to county borrowing or other loans like EFC or somebody else like that? So what other loans are you referring to in terms of source of funding?
I believe it's EFC. Ken, would you comment on that? Ken?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, it's had on mute. So, yeah,
Sorry.
so the county is utilizing EFC for loans for this project, and we entered into a short term, and then we'll have the long-term contract later on with them.
Now, is that just a straight loan as part of their loan program, or is that the 1/3 subsidized interest loan?
The loan program is a straight, for construction, it's a straight loan. Well, we did get some principal forgiveness on the early portion of the design work, a small percentage, but for construction, it's a straight loan for the county portion of funding required.
And then what is being proposed for the long-term
So,
financing?
so as the last time I looked at the funding for this project, We've received grants from the federal government that will cover 16% of the project, state 12%, and the balance 72% is being financed through the loan with EFC that the county will be obligated to return.
And this is Bay Park? Does this include the current pipeline, I guess, between Bay Park and Cedar Creek? Or
That is correct.
It is.
No.
So that's why it's taking that long, because it's not just the immediate problem, it's now the long-term solution.
Yeah, that contract is a 3-year contract. We started it last year, I think it was.
So Ken, this is Jerry. Ultimately, you will be requesting us to bond the portion that the county has borrowed.
Yes, I've been working with OMB on that. At some point, yes, there'll be the cash flow will come through the county. I think it's after 2023.
But
I mean, the only thing I was gonna say is, aside from the EFC loans, they also have the ability to provide a guarantee or a wrap in addition to whatever direct loans they make. So you may want to discuss that with them, because they could, take your loan, which is, whatever the county's rating is at this time, and turn it into a AAA for lower costs. So
Yes, OMB's been integral in conversations with them to maximize their leverage in helping us with our financing.
I'll move it.
there's a second.
Yep, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good, motion carries. And then for discussion, not for action, but many of you received the update from the staff on the county's current financial plan update. And I thought it would be good for Evan just to give a brief overview of that analysis and entertain any questions. And, bear in mind that, in a few weeks' time, the county will be coming out with their proposed budget for 2023. But in anticipation, that probably could be good that Evan just give a high-level overview of his report, see if there are any questions about that.
Sure, it would be my pleasure. So our general assessment of the county's finances is that despite the ongoing pandemic and high inflation rate, the county's near-term fiscal outlook continues to improve. In the short term, and ever mindful that the data we have reflects less than 2/3 of the year, we find that it is likely the county will end 2022 with another GAAP surplus. The positive near-term outlook is led by several factors, including extremely strong sales tax revenue, higher than assumed state aid, and projected savings in salaries and fringe benefits. Those savings are due mostly to lower than assumed costs for employee and retiree health insurance. We are also projecting debt service savings from reduced county borrowing in 2021 and lower spending on social services and Medicaid due to lower caseloads and a favorable increase in the federal medical assistance percentage match. Partially offsetting these favorable variances are projected shortfalls in revenues derived from fines and forfeitures and departmental revenues. However, to fulfill our statutory oversight role, we also need to look beyond the current year's finances. And as a result, we have pointed out concerns regarding several significant liabilities that could impair the county's efforts to attain and sustain long-term structural balance. These concerns include the county's large long-term liabilities for tax cert refunds, non-certiorari litigation, workers' compensation claims, and the county's contingent risk stemming from the deteriorating finances of the Nassau Healthcare Corporation. In addition, the county has not yet secured pattern-conforming labor agreements with all of its unsettled unions. Though the administration has recently reached an agreement with its correction Officers Union, called COBA. And that agreement is scheduled for union ratification on August 31st, so 2 days from now. After which, if it is ratified, it would require county legislative approval and then subsequently NIFA's approval, your approval.
Right, and that, got
No. Do you want me to continue, or did you have a question, a point about the contract?
oh, other than we still haven't seen any information about it, so we couldn't really say what the impact is, so.
No,
until get we've requested information and our request was denied by the county.
that is correct. I was told we would receive that information after the ratification vote. Though I was assured that the agreement that is going to be voted on by membership is pattern conforming and fits within the 14.76% pattern that was set and agreed to by the detectives union and the superior officers union, the SOA.
Guess we'll find out when they submit it for approval, or have a mind to do that, so.
Correct. There is also an open CSEA grievance regarding what is referred to as the COVID comp time that is estimated by the county to cost up to $109 million. That's what was disclosed by them, by the county. Any one of these issues could interrupt the fiscal progress that has been made by the county in recent years, and that's what gives us concern as we look forward. Now, at the end of July, the county did have $467 million in its litigation fund and other reserves. The resources are earmarked to cover the aforementioned long-term liabilities, namely tax certiorari refunds, non-cert judgments, workers' compensation claims, and certain longevity payments. The county also has reserves earmarked for bonded indebtedness, retirement contributions, and certain other employee benefits. Now, that's a significant sum, the $467 million. The fact that the county has these resources available and earmarked for these purposes is definitely praiseworthy. However, it's noteworthy I want to point out it's well short of the long-term liabilities identified by the county in its annual comprehensive financial report for 2021. So while it's a large sum, $467 million, it's far short of what would be needed in total should these long-term liabilities become due and payable. The county executive is releasing his proposed 2023 budget and multi-year financial plan covering the years 23 through 26 on September 15th. At that time, after which we will review the administration's assumptions and prepare an analysis of the proposed plan for discussion at our October meeting. That concludes my comments, but I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Evan, do you expect to get in the county's submission of the multi-year plan or separately answers to the questions we posed in our letter to the county executive and others regarding our topics of interest that could affect our determination of a control period?
I'm just trying to think how to answer you. I, Evan Cohen, would expect to receive answers to those questions. I have not been told that we're going to be receiving the responses as part of the plan submission.
Unless you find it in the submission somewhere, right, without it being specifically identified. So the short answer, and then my follow-up question doesn't make it's pretty self-answering. We haven't yet gotten those answers. No, we have not received any response from the county on any of the questions that we were asked or that Chairman Barsky asked in that letter.
But we were pretty specific that even if they think these answers may appear in different places at different times, that regardless of that, we would like these questions answered in one place here. Yeah, I wasn't, no, I don't think any of us are confused by what we sent them, and I thought it was fairly clear. I just was curious if they expected to follow the directives in that letter or try to make us find it.
well, I guess, well, again, like the like the court officer's contract, we'll find out, I guess, when they want it approved.
Yes.
Anything else worth noting, Evan, or any questions from members of anything else in the report or concerns? Again, just by way of timing, especially for new members, maybe Evan, why don't you do that for just a second while we have the new members on the phone? Why don't you just lay out the timeline of how this all unfolds in terms of what the county does, what they do, what we do, what then the legislature does, and when the county executive does, and then what we do finally, just so that they can have a look forward as to how this all gets approved or not between now and let's say December. That might be helpful.
Sure. So the initial first step is the county executive submits what's referred to as the proposed budget and financial plan. That is, goes to the legislature. It also goes to NIFA. So we review it. We typically have a report of findings that we release sometime mid-October, with the expectation that the legislature would consider our findings when they are required by charter mandate to adopt the budget and financial plan no later than October 30th. And after October 30th, there is a 17-day combined window during which the legislature can make amendments, or I should say, I'm sorry, the legislature has prior to October 30th, they may make amendments that get adopted on October 30th, after which the county executive can veto one or more, or all of those amendments, and the legislature has an opportunity to schedule a vote to override the county executive's vetoes if there are any. So that 17-day window takes us until roughly November 17th, at which time there's a final version of an adopted and post-veto period plan, which NIFA must then make a determination whether to approve that plan or to reject and send back for modification if it's insufficient to meet the needs of that NIFA has sole discretion to make that determination.
And we have on numerous occasions sent it back to them and told them to change it or to tighten here or there. So it's not unusual for us to say, no, we're not happy with it.
Right. So if it were to be sent back, we would then the administration would have an opportunity to revise it and resubmit for, again, a second round of consideration by NIFA. If the directors, if you all were to decide that it still did not meet the needs of NIFA for approval, then at that time, NIFA could impose its own budget on the county. And that would take us into December.
One way or other, we usually have this resolved no later than mid-December, because the county needs to get out their tax bills for next year and they need a certain amount of lead time. So people often will delay or procrastinate, but pretty much the drop dead date is the middle of December.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
If there are no questions, entertain a
Move to
motion.
adjourn. Move to adjourn.
Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much and enjoy what's left of the summer. And I think we'll be seeing you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.